Welcome to episode 2 of True Untold Nightmares. I'm your host, Chris Moss, and today I got true stories of ghosts, a shadow person, and some devil thing. I don't know if it's a devil, but we'll get to that story in a minute. Before I get to the stories, I wanted to cover 5 things real quick. I created a Facebook group, True Untold Nightmares. The link to the Facebook group is down in the description, along with links to Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon Podcast, Anchor, some other ones, but I'm not on Apple Podcast yet. I'm gonna be on there soon. I have an Android phone, so I don't have an Apple ID or anything. I got to create all that before I can submit my podcast. But also, a timestamp is down below. So if you want to skip the announcement real quick, the timestamp is also in the description. And if you would like to send me your story, there's 2 ways to do it. You can Facebook message me through the Facebook group, or you can email me your story. And the email is in the description, along with the About Me page on YouTube, and it's on the Facebook group. So the email is everywhere, and it'll be on the screen of this YouTube video. So the email's everywhere. So email me or Facebook message me. I take privacy and the stories very seriously. So if you want to keep your name, your profession, your location out of the story, you can make up a false name. That's perfectly fine with me. But the more stories that I get, the longer the episodes will be. And instead of getting stories once a week, the episodes will go up to twice a week. So you'll get longer episodes and more content and more episodes the more stories I get. So don't hesitate to send your story in. I can't wait to hear from you. Now, the first couple stories I got from close friends of mine, a couple who live in an apartment. Now, as far as I know, and as far as they know, this apartment doesn't have a creepy past or anything like that. It's not hella old, but they've had some very creepy things happen in their apartment. And for the sake of privacy, I'll refer to them as Martha and Luke. Now, Martha and Luke, like myself, are horror fanatics. We love horror movies. So us talking about the paranormal isn't, out of the ordinary. But one day I was at their apartment. We were playing board games, having a couple drinks, and they proceed to tell me of the weird things that have happened around their apartment. Now, Martha tells me about a time that while she was brushing her teeth, and you know how you finish brushing your teeth, you bend over, spit in the sink. She said when she went to go bend over to spit in the sink, she felt a hand firmly press on her back. Nothing malicious, but it was like a gentle press, like helping her to spit out her toothpaste. Even though she wasn't having any complications, she was spitting just fine. So obviously she was creeped out, rightfully so. Now, I don't remember if she was brushing her teeth at night or in the morning. I would have to ask her again to clarify on that. But Luke then proceeds to tell me that one night while they're in bed that he notices that the door is opening on its own. And it kind of just creaks open, and then that was basically it. Still creepy nonetheless. He didn't see a figure or anything standing in the doorway or nothing like that. But speaking of figures, Martha did tell me that one night while they were in bed and Luke was sleeping, she saw a shadow person in the corner of the room. It didn't move towards her, it didn't touch her, anything like that. But she just said it was just standing there, and it was one of the creepiest things that she's ever seen or dealt with. And they've also had other guests that have come over to their apartment say things like they feel like they're being watched. So me personally, I haven't felt anything like that. Me personally, I have never experienced anything. So I don't know, maybe it was attracted. I don't know. There's something about their guests that this shadow thing is attracted to. But the trippy part of all of this is 2 things. One, Martha and Luke are atheists. And I've talked to them about it because typically with atheists, they explain everything away and they're very big on science. They don't believe in higher power. They don't believe in ghosts. They don't believe in shadow people, devils, none of that. So I kind of question. I'm like, well, you guys are atheists and you're telling me you're having paranormal experiences. I'm like, there is a bit of a disconnect here. The math isn't mathing. I, for one, am a very spiritual person. I grew up in a church. My grandfather was the pastor of his own church. So I personally believe in the paranormal, hence why I have this podcast. But at the end of the day, I mean, we all agreed that, no matter your beliefs, no matter your religion, none of us truly knows what lies after death, what awaits us after death. The only people who know are the ones who have passed already, and they're not coming back to tell us. Everybody has their theories, their beliefs. Nobody 1000% knows, and that's just the truth of the matter. But the second thing about this whole situation is that the thing they pointed out to me is that from their bathroom window, there's an urn sitting in the window of the house next to their apartment building. So from their from their bathroom window, you can see the window of the bedroom of the house next to them, across from them. And apparently the story behind that is that the owner of the house didn't want to leave the house. So he died, he was cremated, and they placed the urn in the bedroom in the window. So if you look out their bathroom window, you're making eye contact right away with the urn in the next window across, which is very creepy. So that begs the question, the hand on her back while she's brushing her teeth, the door opening, the feel like they're being watched, the shadow person in the room. Is it the owner from the house next to them? Like, is it his ghost? Is this a completely separate um e- encounter, experience, whatever you want to call it? Like, is this shadow person, I don't know, was it previous tenants? Maybe they conjured up something. Maybe previous tenants died, or I don't know, maybe Martha and Luke went somewhere and attracted a spirit. Maybe the shadow person just randomly targeted them. I don't know. It could be any of those amount of things. Now, like I said, every time I'm over there, I never feel like I'm being watched. I never experience anything, and I don't want to. I've never had any experiences with shadow people, but I will count this as a ghost story, but I'll tell my own personal ghost story at the end of this episode. So stick around. But yeah, I haven't hung out with them in a couple months. So I haven't heard any new experiences or anything like that. But next time I hang out with them, and then I'll check in with them and see, has everything quieted down, or have they experienced any more creepy stuff? And then I'll come back and update you guys. But let me know what you guys think it is down in the comments below. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or any other audio podcast, go over to the YouTube channel and let me know your thoughts, theories, and ideas. Now, this next story comes from a friend who attended UC Santa Cruz a few years back, and she was renting a room in an old Victorian home while she was attending the college. So you already know where this story is about to go. Now, she would say that every night as she goes to bed, like clockwork, this woman in an old Victorian dress would appear in front of her door inside her room. Now, she slept with the door closed, not open, but this woman would appear in her room at her door and just stare at her almost every night. Now, she didn't tell me what time of the night this would happen, but the crazy thing about this story, once again, is that she's atheist. We have another atheist who is telling me about their paranormal experience. And once again, the math isn't mathing, because, especially with this situation, because after she told me the story, she would say that she doesn't believe in these things. But I'm like, but you just told me a ghost story. You told me you've seen a ghost. But she, now in true atheist fashion, she would try to explain it away, like, oh, I was probably dreaming, or oh, I personally think she's in denial. Love her to death. That's my friend. But, call a spade a spade. She's an atheist that has had a paranormal encounter, and now I feel like she's in denial. She only told me this story once. She's never talked about it again. But atheists intrigue me. They honestly do, especially the ones who have encountered or experienced something. Instead of just admitting that there is more to life than what you can possibly understand, it's like they just buckle down and sink further into denial. Like, I don't know, they just like to stick to their ways of, oh, there's nothing more to life than, once we die, that's it. It just, honestly, it just sounds like being an atheist is boring. But that's just my 2 cents. And as far as Victorian homes go, I would never personally stay into one, because they always seem to be haunted. Like, Victorian homes always have some history tied to it. I'm pretty sure there is some history tied to that house, which is why that spirit appears to her. Now, I visited that Victorian home to like hang out with her and a couple friends. And once again, just like the apartment, I've never gotten a sense that I was being watched. I've never felt anything in the house. It just almost seems like, I don't know, ghosts avoid me or something. But I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, I wouldn't stay in a Victorian home though. I would visit, but you won't catch my ass spending the night. Now, this next story came from a girl I went on a couple dates with. I had met her on some random dating app. Don't remember the app. This was a while back, but on one of the dates that we went on, she was also into the paranormal. So she told me about her paranormal experience, about a time that her and her ex were in bed and they both had the same dream of a red faced devil. She didn't know what it was. She didn't know if it was actually was a devil, but she was just saying it was a man's face. His face was red, but it was badly burnt. She compared it to Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, but it looked worse. Like the burns looked so much worse than what Freddy Krueger looks like in the movie. But that's the closest thing that she could think of to describe the face. And she was just like, he just looked mean and devil like. And she was saying that when they woke up, there was like a burning smell. She didn't say it smelled like sulfur. She said it wasn't like a foul smell. It was just it smelled as if you burnt something in the kitchen, but it was like more intense. And she was saying that, I guess for her, not the ex-boyfriend, but for her, I think it tried to like physically harm her in a way, like strangle her or something. I don't fully remember the details of that part, so I'm gonna just quickly touch on that it physically hurt her, but I don't want to say like, oh yeah, it choked her while she was in bed or anything, because I don't fully remember the details of what it did to her. But I do remember her telling me that it physically hurt her. And it didn't physically hurt the ex-boyfriend, but the ex-boyfriend did see the face as well, and he did smell the burning smell. But the only difference is she's the one who was physically attacked, but he wasn't. Now, I don't know what that's about. If you've had something like that happen to you, email it to me, Facebook message me on the Facebook group, or comment down below if you're listening to this on YouTube, of you and a person dreaming the same exact thing, whether you're sharing a bed or you're in two different locations. That is creepy. Like, that's very rare. I don't think I've ever shared the same dream as somebody else or seeing a face. It's creepy. I don't know what to make of it. I would call it a devil too. It's not a shadow person. I wouldn't call it a ghost. I mean, it could have been a ghost, but that sounds like some devil shit. So I'm gonna just say devil. Now, she didn't tell me what time of night this took place, and she did say she hasn't had another paranormal experience since then. So I don't know. That's weird that that happened, and it's even more weird that she was the target for physical abuse and the ex-boyfriend wasn't. I don't know what that's about, but let me hear your theories and ideas down in the comments below. Now, this next story is my own personal story. Like I told you earlier, I was going to share my ghost story. I'm going to classify it as a ghost story. Back in 2018, my grandmother who raised me, who I call Mama, she passed away September 2018. And what ended up happening was, in a couple weeks later, matter of fact, October 2018, one day I was coming home from school and, wasn't really thinking about her passing. Like, my mind was like on homework and a bunch of other stuff going on at the time. It was keeping me busy. And so, I came home from school, I took a nap, and during this nap, I was dreaming. I don't remember what the dream was, but the reason I remember I was dreaming is because, now typically I don't remember my dreams, but the reason I remember I was dreaming is because my dream paused, as if you pause a movie, and then all of a sudden it melted away. And as the dream paused and started melting away, my consciousness, I was becoming fully conscious like I am now. And that's when I look over and I see my grandmother. and we are in a white space. Like it's just whiteness surrounding us. No other colors than just whiteness. And, you know, she's sitting there in a chair. And so, you know, I come up, there's a chair in front of her. I come up to the chair and I sit down in the chair in front of her. And to this day, I can tell you what she was wearing. She was wearing a dress, a black dress, and she had on, there's a certain type of earrings that she wore. I remember from when I was little, like, because we grew up in a church. She was the first lady of the church, and this was one of many sets of earrings that she owned. But she was wearing, I remember the earrings, the details of the earrings. I remember what she wore, you know, and I remember everything we talked about, which I'm not going to get into because it touched on a lot of personal stuff. But I remember our conversation as if I'm talking, I just got done talking to somebody on the phone, or I just got done talking to somebody and then came home, like that. Like I remember our conversation so vividly, and I remember what she looked like, and we talked. And I remember while talking to her, I felt another presence there. Not a malicious presence, but it felt like a higher being was watching over us. I just couldn't see them, but they were there. I knew for some reason, I just felt like whether it's angel or God, one of the two was watching over this conversation between us. And it felt like I had this feeling that I wasn't allowed to ask certain things. Like if I tried to ask certain things, like it wouldn't even come out of my mouth. You know, it kind of felt like somebody was watching over this conversation, making sure I don't poke and prod too much. You know what I mean? Like I said, it wasn't a malicious presence. It was a calming presence, but it was kind of there to kind of mediate, to make sure I don't step out of boundaries as far as, you know, conversation topics go or questions. Like I felt like deep down inside, I felt like I wasn't allowed to ask anything about the afterlife. I wasn't allowed to ask, how are you doing? I wasn't allowed to ask, you know, where are you? I wasn't allowed to ask, you know, how is it? Like, you know, what is it like? Anything like that. So basically, the conversation was about what I was doing. She knew I was in college. She knew that I just finished. No, she knew I was in college. She knew about everything. And, you know, I'll share this part. You know, I don't have a great relationship with my dad for things he has done. And one thing I will say she touched on is my relationship with my dad. And she was telling me, you got to forgive him, you know. And once the conversation was over, she gets up and she turns to walk away. And as she's walking away, I was like, hey, you know, she turns around and I said, thank you for everything. And she gives me this smile, and then she turns back around and keeps walking forward. Now, as she's walking, the whiteness that we're surrounded by gets brighter and brighter and brighter until she's gone. And even after she's gone, like once she leaves and she's completely out of view, she goes into the light. It felt like somebody pushed me back into my body. Like, okay, meeting's over or reunion over. And it wasn't a malicious push. It was kind of like a nudge, kind of like, all right, you got to go, dude. Like you're not allowed. Time's up. You're not allowed to be here anymore. Type of ordeal, you know. And then, yeah, once I entered back into my body, like my eyes shot open, and I was just like, I just started crying because that happened back in 2018. It's 2022, and I remember the conversation. I remember what she wore. I remember everything, as if I'm talking to one of you guys, like if one of you guys was sitting in front of me and I was having a conversation at dinner, that type of thing, you know. And then fast forward about a year and a half later, maybe even 2 years, I'm talking to my sister, and my grandmother was in a nursing home. She was sick. She wasn't doing too good. So we all kind of knew her time was coming. So it wasn't like a surprise. But one thing I did not know, and my sister told me like a year and a half, 2 years later, is that all of my family's in Texas. I'm the only one in California. So all of the family knew she was taking a turn for the worse, because I believe the nurse called and was like, yeah, it's getting to that point. So all of the family went and visited her And my sister said that the only person who wasn't in that room was me, the boy that she raised, the grandson that she raised. I was the only one missing out of that room. And none of my family members told me that this even took place, that they went to go visit her. And I asked my sister, I'm like, why? Like, why didn't anybody tell me? And she was like, honestly, because you're in California, you're in college, like you have a lot going on. We didn't want to burden you with that information. Like, we didn't want to tell you because you're so far away, you're not surrounded by family. So, we kind of kept it to ourselves. And a part of me gets it, but also a part of me is like, well, fuck, y'all still should have told me. But after she told me that, I straight up got the chills because then I just remembered the conversation me and my grandmother had. And it's like, fuck, like, for the longest, I only told people in my inner circle this story, but now I'm telling it on the podcast because one, every time I would retell it, I would get highly emotional. So I wouldn't tell it for a while. Even now I'm getting a little bit emotional, but, the second reason I wouldn't go around just telling anybody is because honestly, that experience to me is so sentimental. I don't want to tell anybody that story and then they try to explain it away because then I might punch you in the throat. I don't know. The last thing I want to hear, like I'm telling you, I got to talk to my grandmother one last time and I remember everything. The last thing I want to hear is like, oh, well, that probably didn't really happen. What happened was like, bro, shut the fuck up. Like that. There's just certain things that can't be explained in this life, in this world. So yeah, that's my own personal story. I haven't had a paranormal experience before that, nor after that, as of yet. Now my aunt, who also unfortunately passed away in 2020, my grandmother's daughter, she had the ability to see people who passed away. And I remember her telling me when I was young about this ability that she has. And she said she's had it ever since she was a little girl. And basically people who have passed away would appear at the foot of her bed and pass on a message. And, she listed off the many different people who have passed away and who she's seen. Like her best friend died from cancer. She saw her best friend at the foot of her bed. She saw, her grandmother, which is my great grandmother. After she passed, she saw her at the foot of the bed. They had moved into a new house, and I remember her telling me like the owner of that house appeared at the foot of her bed, and basically his message was like, "Hey, take care of my home," that type of thing. And so yeah, I just remember asking her like, are you not scared? And she was saying for a little bit I was, as a kid I was, but you live with an ability like that. She lived to be 50 something. You get used to it after a while. So, I don't have that gift. Thank God I don't have that gift because I don't think I could take it. I don't think there's no getting used to it with me. That's why I don't have the gift. But as a kid, I was always intrigued by the paranormal. I've always been attracted to the paranormal. I don't know why. I always felt deep down inside that there's more to this world than we will ever know or understand. And my first cryptid that I've ever heard of as a kid was the Loch Ness Monster. And I just remember, mind you, I'm in early middle, hearing about the Loch Ness and literally going, oh, that exists. Literally without hesitation, I would just remember saying to myself like, oh, it exists, so I don't know. The paranormal is just, maybe it's the love of horror movies. I was introduced to horror movies at a young age. So maybe that had an influence. I don't know, but do I still believe in a Loch Ness? I'm not sure. I think maybe over 30 years ago or a little bit longer, something was definitely in that lake. As of right now, I don't know. I don't know if it's still there or not. But definitely over 30 years ago, I would say, yeah, the Loch Ness I feel like it was a real thing. But let me know what you guys think about all that down in the comments below. If you're listening on Spotify, head on over to the Facebook group. Come on over to the YouTube channel, leave some comments. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. Man, this is probably the longest episode I've done so far. But like I said before, if you guys send me more stories, these episodes will get even longer, and you'll get them more often during the week. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. It means a lot. It truly does. Send in your stories. Don't be scared. I know I'm the new kid on the block. I'm the fresh meat. All these different paranormal podcasts are out there. But yeah, I don't care if you shared it with 2 or 3 other podcasts. I want to hear your story, because there's always somebody out there who hasn't heard your story yet. So send those in. I'm going to be on the lookout. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.